So let's sit nice and tall. Close the eyes. And take a moment to breathe in and breathe out. Accept this opportunity to delight in this moment. There is nothing else that needs your attention right now. You can be completely free, enjoying the breath, present to yourself, and present to all that is sacred, all that is. And then gently fluttering the eyes open. Yeah. It really is that simple. Like, that's the secret. You can go home now. Just remember that in this moment, you really are perfectly fine. In this moment, you are. I guess the question is, what is a moment? We don't live moments in our enculturated life. We live a linear timeline of seconds, minutes, hours, days, years. A moment is not on that line. A moment is both right now. By the time I get done saying right now, that moment's gone. By the time I begin to say right now, that moment's already gone. But in addition to being so subtle and a bit evasive, a moment is also eternity. It is everything. It is so much more than just the linear timeline that we are enculturated into. A moment is both fleeting and contains everything. So when we come to a place where we are working to exist in the moment, what we're really saying to ourselves is that we understand the limitation of a linear timeline and the freedom of an expansive nature that goes beyond past, present, future. It's powerful. If you look at it from that place in this moment, you're fine. Absolutely fine. And in my younger years, I had a counselor from a women's center. And I was her client for many, many years. She's just such a wise woman. She didn't practice yoga or meditation. But she told me to say that to myself. She said, you need to say, anytime that you feel fear coming forward or flashbacks coming forward, you need to stop, ground yourself, and say, in this moment, I'm fine. In this moment, I'm fine. And that became my mantra for many years. And the beauty of that statement is that it's an anchor. It brings you back to the truth of the moment and the lie of time. Now, time is not a complete lie. We experience it, of course. You know, you're born, and et cetera, and so on. You have birthdays. They're great, right? Yeah. They just reinforce that linear timeline. I don't know. Or maybe they're great when you have more in front of you than behind you. But the moment that you kind of get to that teetering place where it's like 50-50, or there's less in front of you and more behind you, then suddenly birthdays take on the effectiveness of a curse, you know. That's the limitation of the timeline. It's greatly limited. But the moment is not limited at all by anything. And when we talk about the soul being eternal, that's what we're saying. Is that the soul is not bounded, the spirit is not bounded by our human concept of time. We talked this weekend for the retreat attendees. The topic was Dharma, Karma, and Varna. And we came to an understanding in one of our earlier sessions that Dharma, it's many things. It's difficult to explain in English. It doesn't really have a correlate or an easy translation. But there are some things about Dharma that we can work to understand. And the first is that there is a natural way of the universe, which is not a linear timeline. There is a natural way of the universe, and you are part of that natural way. You are not apart from it. You are part of it. You are like a cell in a larger organism. You both have your independent existence as an ego personality, and you also have this other kind of collaborative existence where you're not at all separate. When the universe or the cosmos is behaving as we witness it, as we see it, it's not personal. It doesn't bring the storm on because you aggravated it. The cosmos, and in this instance we'll say God, doesn't get even with people. Things don't happen to you because you are a bad person. The universe doesn't function that way. The universe does not commit actions based on greed, anger, lust, desire, vengefulness, or anything like that. Because the cosmos, the universe, the source, God, goddess, is not concerned with such small things, petty things. It behaves from an impersonal perspective, meaning that it does not have a self-centered focus. It just is. Now, there's a certain ethic that we can apply to that. That ethic could be compassion. That ethic could be a willingness to cause no harm out of one's own anger. A willingness to open up to a greater view, a bigger picture of oneself and of all others. It could be the decision to stay out of other people's business. It could be the decision to be generous, to be of service, to be of support where it's needed. We can take that impersonal nature of the cosmos and of Source, and we can translate it into our language, into the cultivation of ethics in this life. And when we speak of Dharma, we're talking about this overarching oneness and the ethics necessary to experience that. So your dharmic path is not whether you're a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. Your dharmic path is whatever it is that you're doing. How are you doing it? Are you like the universe? Are you like your source? The word Christian means to be Christ-like. Are you like Christ, if that's your calling? If you're a Krishnavite, are you like Krishna? If you're a Shakta, are you like Shakti? Are you like that source? And whatever part of it you're able to see in this moment in your life. Then we come to karma. And the word karma also doesn't translate easily to English. The only kind of word that we can get that's a little close to it is action. It's anything you do that has a consequence, and everything you do has a consequence. You bat your eyelashes, it's got a consequence to it. You wake up in the morning, there's a consequence. You go to bed at night, there's a consequence. You walk across the floor, there's a consequence. It's action. Karma is action. Karma is not a payback system, but it is a system of action-consequence. That there is a consequence to every action. So, you hang up the phone, there's a consequence. What matters about how you hung up the phone is how you hung up the phone. Now that helps to influence the consequence, but it doesn't dictate it. Because you can't control that which is outside of you. You can only control that which is inside of you. So your primary concern about karma is your own. and not anybody else's. If you're running around trying to control other people's actions, then you're not paying attention to your own. Yeah, hello. So karma is action, and again, it's simple action. It's eating food. It's breathing in and breathing out. It's also lying, stealing, cheating, loving, serving, whatever you do. It's lifting your knee up and down. It's holding your coffee cup or tea. It's how you sit in your chair. It's writing in your book. It's all karma. So in this thought of karma, some things don't need to be resolved because they're passive. Not passive-aggressive. Passive. They're kind of neutral. So they don't need to worry about those things. You had no intention to harm. You came from, a place of pure, true, honest love. We'll talk about that a little bit. You breathe in and out every day. You don't have the intention of killing off all those little microbes because of the gas that your nostrils produce that kills them off and stops them from hurting you. So you don't have to rectify that action. You don't have to heal that karma. But if you go and punch someone, if you go and hurt someone, if you go and steal from someone, if you outwardly lash out at someone, hoping to hurt them or hoping to manipulate them, you're going to have to resolve that, or it's going to become an albatross around your neck. We have to resolve our harmful behaviors. And that's the kind of the thought school of karma, is that it is a process of resolution. It is a process of bringing our experience of this life to a place that is less harmful, more loving, less manipulative, more supportive, less greedy, more generous. Does that make sense? So this karma, which is a huge topic, and I'm just giving you a really broad kind of overview. This karma is something that we're engaged in every single day. And we need to know that we're engaged in it. We need to know that, even something as simple as eating your peanut butter and jelly sandwich is not as simple as eating your peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Not really. Not if you're treating that food with disgust, distaste, woofing it down, wasting it. That's karma. And if your tendency is to take one bite and throw the rest out, well then, now you have a karma that we'll label wasteful, greedy, unappreciative. That will have to be resolved. What does it resolve to? Its opposite. The wasteful becomes, you take what you need only. The greedy is resolved through generosity. The lack of appreciation is resolved through appreciation. The violence is resolved through peace. The weakness is resolved through strength. Whatever the harmful karma is, becomes resolved by acting its opposite. And this brings us to Varna. Because the word Varna translates loosely as the cultivation of those qualities necessary to know yourself. Not your earthly self, worldly self, who your ego thinks you are, but your true self. The cultivation of noble qualities. That word noble is such a great word. I just came across it recently and I was like, that's a word. That's such a good word, noble. The word noble, beyond reproach. Not because you hide it real well. Not because you sweep it under the rug, pretend nobody can see. But because you take it out from under the rug, you face it. And you make the adjustments, the adaptations, and the whatever it needs to happen in order to heal it. Beyond reproach, honest, transparent, truthful with yourself. And when necessary, truthful with others. That's another conversation. Because what is truth, you know? We've got to understand that too. Is verbal diarrhea truth? I'm going to tell you what I think of you. Is that truth or is that opinion? Keep your opinion to yourself. It doesn't mean anything. There's really only one truth. And that's the truth that takes you closer to Dharma. Closer to the nature of your true self. Closer to unity and oneness. So this Varna is on this list, karma, Dharma, karma, Varna. It's oftentimes listed last. It actually is the first step. So you got to start from the end. It's like IKEA directions. Man, we get so much stuff from IKEA, and Ed and I learned early on, do not start with step one. Go to the last page. Because inevitably, there will always be a pile of stuff, and we'd be like, I don't think those are extras. But here, we're going to start with Varna. And we're going to say that Varna is your life study about the qualities that you currently possess. And you're going to look at those and with some amount of knowledge, compassion, and understanding, make a subtle assessment about what is noble and what is not. What is kind and what is not. What is generous and what is not. What is loving and what is not. What is peaceful and what is not. And then making the choice to cultivate those behaviors that are in line with resolving your karma and awakening your Dharma. Practice your Varna. Resolve your karma. Know your Dharma. Ignore your Varna. Accumulate karma. No Dharma. Out of bounds. Not even visible. Ignorance. Isn't that amazing? Like, they wrote this stuff like 5,000 years ago. That inspires me. You know, it really does, because it's like 5,000 years ago, they were dealing with the same human psychology, the same pitfalls, the same trappings, the same issues with the ego that we're dealing with today. And here we have this, handful of people who sat with this. Some of them went off to live in the forest. And they studied themselves, and they studied the nature of suffering, where it comes from, why we react to it the way we do. And they wrote about it, or they talked about it. Eventually they wrote about it. Other people lived in the villages, and they too studied. They looked around them, and they saw. That was what the Buddha did. The Buddha did both, actually. The Buddha, most people don't know, was a yogi for a lot of years of his life. He was a yogi. He went off with the renunciates, and he lived in the midst of the forest and committed great austerities. And then he woke up, and austerity is when you commit great harm for the purpose of learning. To yourself only, though, not to others. Great harm to yourself for the purpose of learning. So like they would hang upside down from a tree branch for a couple of months. Eat 1 grain of rice a day for a year, nothing else. Eliminate water. Hold their arm up. You can go and look online, and still today there are sadhus, which are these holy people. And they walk around like this, never to lower their arm. The tips of their fingers are black. Oh man, their shoulders are now fused, They've lost all function of the arm. Why on earth would they do that? This is why they do that. Because they want to understand suffering and their relationship to it. They're not committing a mindless act like we do every single day. They're committing a mindful act. And they're saying, there is something here beyond the suffering. How do I get to that? How do I pass the suffering and get to the healing? And so they create the situation on purpose so that they can study the situation, so they can know the relationship, so they can surpass the suffering. And because they were so bold and brave in their study, look at the wisdom that has come to us. We don't have to hold our arm up like this unless we choose to. We can look at the teachings and say, it's right there. The answers are right there. We come into our own practice, whether it's on the yoga mat or the meditation cushion or service in the world, and we live the wisdom of their words. And through the experience of our life, we come to know the truth of those words. And then we begin to surpass our own suffering. Not eliminate it. That ain't going to happen. Sorry. We don't eliminate suffering. We have right relationship to it. Because suffering is not what we think it is. Suffering is about an inappropriate relationship. It's when I look and I say, I shouldn't have to deal with that. I shouldn't have to deal with this. Coffee's cold, I shouldn't have to deal with that. Internet doesn't work, I shouldn't have to deal with that. All these things cause suffering. I shouldn't have to suffer. Everything should be comfy. Cozy. Look at the universe. Look at nature. Look out there. Is everything comfy and cozy? No. There are things dying, there are things growing, and there is everything in between that spectrum. We're not separate from that. We're part of that. We're a cell in that organism. Why should we be any different? Right relationship to suffering is understanding that it exists. And then committing our hearts to understanding if suffering exists, then its opposite does too. Healing. So why am I putting all my eggs in the suffering basket? Can I put at least a couple in the healing basket? Varna is the practice of cultivating the qualities within oneself necessary to move those eggs. To really move those eggs, not just say we move the eggs, but to actually move them. To balance the scales so that the suffering is not so overwhelming where everything feels like a dagger to the heart. That's no way to live. It's no way to live. Let half of what happens to you feel like a rose with no thorns. Or let everything that happens to you feel like a rose, both the flower and the thorns. That's probably the better way. You can appreciate the rose and be mindful of the thorns. Is that making sense so far? Yeah. So this is all laid out for us, like 5,000 years ago. And it's been laid out over and over and over again ever since then. And it boggles my mind continually that these teachings are not more present in our society. And then I'm like, no, it makes complete sense. Because if you're living the path of Dharma, Karma, Varna, then you're not living the path of the ego. And society is very much ego-based. Just go look at the advertisements on the billboards. Telling you how you should look, how you should feel, what you should wear, how much money you should spend, how much money you should have. Telling you what is appropriate for a human being, what is not appropriate for a human being. Investing in messages that separate us. Investing in messages that cut you down and make you into nothing. And not the good kind of nothing. The other kind of nothing. You close your eyes to those billboards. You have to close your eyes to those and open your eyes to something else. Rumi has a beautiful poem called The First Eyes. My book isn't here. Paraphrasing greatly. He said, every river has 4 streams. Milk, water, honey, and nectar. Open your eyes and see it for what it is. Not the earthly eyes that are in this body that see difference everywhere, that see the opposites, that see the shadows and the light, and that make a big deal out of them. But see with your first eyes. Your first eyes, the eyes that saw only unity. Only unity. And only love. Well, wait. But we live in a world of opposites. How can I see only love? Hate exists. Are you denying hate exists? I'm not denying hate exists. Hate does exist. Of course it does. It exists, and it comes from individuals who don't believe in love. They don't have faith in love. They've made a choice. They had 2 baskets. One labeled hate, one hated love. One labeled love. But they weren't labeled in a way that was clear. It's like doctor writing. You ever see doctors writing? So my mother was the head nurse of Point Pleasant Hospital in New Jersey for many, many years. And she almost went on to become a doctor. She had many of her credits toward that. Man, she had such chicken scratch. And in those days, they actually taught them how to write like that. And they taught them how to recognize what was written. Because they didn't want people to be able to see, and to be able to mimic the penmanship of the doctors. So they had to learn, this kind of like crazy language. So that's what's written on these baskets. So you're not sure which one is love, which one is hate. You're letting, the ego guide you to put your eggs in one or the other. And the ego guides you to put eggs in the one that you think feels good. The one you think feels good. And why do we think that anger and hate feel good? Because they release a certain kind of energy in the body that feels like we're getting it out of ourselves. But the problem with that is that we're putting it onto somebody else. And when we put it onto somebody else, we are being nothing but harmful. And that is a karma that will have to be resolved. And in order to resolve that karma, you need to cultivate the qualities necessary to acknowledge you put your eggs in the wrong basket and then move them. It's so crazy. It's so simple, but it's truly the hardest thing in the world. Because nobody wants to be wrong. Nobody wants to acknowledge, I've been putting my eggs in the hate basket. We don't want to acknowledge that because we're afraid of what other people are going to say, how they're going to see us. You have to be braver than that. And you need to recognize in your own heart and soul that everybody has put their eggs in the hate basket at some point or another. And to acknowledge that that's where you've put them is not to say, I'm a bad person. It's to say, I recognize that I was thinking in such a small, selfish way. I'm ready to change that. I'm ready to move from small and selfish to generous, kind, honest, humble, honorable, noble, to noble. Why can't we just take all the eggs we put in the hate basket and dump them into the love basket? Because it doesn't work that way. You can't put everything there all at once, usually. Then we end up with empty words. Well, I'm just love. I'm all about love. And then your barista at Starbucks gets your coffee wrong, and you're like, excuse me, did you not listen to me? Did you not hear me when I gave you my order? Is that love? No. That's superiority complex. That's a form of hate. Yeah, so think about that. When we go around and say, I'm all about love, have you cultivated the qualities necessary to be that? Where that barista has worked hard getting their $7 an hour to give you a delicious beverage, where's the appreciation and the gratitude? Where's the humility and the understanding? How many of you are local? Like, why I'm missing local? Have you ever gone to the Starbucks over there? Oh my God, do you know how hard they work? I have never been there once where it wasn't like wrapped all the way around and they're running around and they're still serving you with a smile. The first thing they still ask you when you get to the window is, how's your day going? Thanks so much for being here. They're cultivating the quality, maybe it's a corporate endeavor, but still, they're cultivating the quality of friendliness. Are you? Yeah. It's so hard. It's hard to acknowledge. It's hard to recognize. It's hard to make the choice to change. And if you're happy with the way the world is today, then you don't need to. How many of you are happy with the way the world is today? Not a hand in the room. What part of that is your responsibility? Some good part of it. Because not only are we part of the problem, but we're also part of the solution. We're not only part of the solution, we are part of the problem. Every time we say, oh, I'm all about love, and we do not consciously attempt to live up to that by cultivating the necessary qualities to switch our eggs from the hate to the love basket, or whatever, however you want to explain that, so that we can come closer to our Dharma, then we're contributing to maintaining status quo, the world as it is. As we come into a really hotly contested political season, stop calling people names. Period. How many of you are on Facebook? Okay, here's something that you're going to put on every political post that you post. In your post, you don't call anybody a name. All you state are the qualities. And not like this, not like, well, so-and-so has the qualities that I love, not that other one. No. I'm so happy to see a platform for loving kindness, for inclusivity, for this, for that, for whatever it is, whatever the quality is that you're looking for. And then under that you post any violent, bullying, negative comments will be deleted. That's your right. And then don't reply to those comments. Just take them off of your Facebook page. By doing that, you're cultivating a little tiny bit of courage. You're cultivating a little tiny bit of mindfulness. You're putting up a healthy boundary. These are things that are necessary. These are some of the necessary qualities to experience yourself as a more noble person. As a person who is aligning more with the Varna, the resolution of karma, and the path of Dharma. But if you go on there and there's a troll, right? Isn't that what they call them? Trolls? And they're egging you on. And you're like, I'll tell you. And then they say something and you're like, well, I'll tell you again. And then they say something and you're like, well, I'm going to tell you again. Now your blood pressure is through the roof. You haven't told them anything. All you have succeeded in doing is continuing the status quo. Stop being part of the status quo. And remember that you are inherently part of something much greater. Your source. So why are you settling for a troll when you have source? to contend with. Does that make sense? Yeah. Do a time check. Oh, good. Questions, thoughts at this point, reflections? Yes?
You were talking about the Facebook page. I did do a like because my friend had put down that I can get behind any candidate that is pro-animals, pro-environment, and non-violent.
Yeah.
And it was so cool.
Absolutely. Isn't that the way it should be? Right? Yes.
I know I rarely get on Facebook, but when I did last time, one of my classmates posted something and it started a huge row. And it was just terrible. Like people were expressing their views and not kindly. And I just had to stop following it because, I just said, I can't eat it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's both sides. It's not just one party or the other. I had a man who was interested in dating me, and he had Trump sign in his yard. And I just joked. I said, might have an issue with the Trump sign. But I wasn't really serious. He went off with me. Somebody keyed my car, and it's people like you. And I'm like, wow. Yeah, you got really angry. And I said, I'm not angry, and I didn't key your car.
Yeah.
But people are so emotional about it now. I've never, ever seen anybody, society so emotional about an election.
Do you remember the Reagan election?
No.
When President Reagan became president? Yeah. Oh boy, that was so emotional that the band Genesis wrote a song about him. Right? Yeah, he was an actor. And I forget what his wife, Nancy, was doing, astrology or something like that. And so if you go back and look at the Genesis, the song where Reagan and Nancy are in bed together, and the alarm goes off, and the nuclear button is right next to the alarm button. Yeah, and it's like, anybody know the name of that song? Rich, come on, you got to know.
Is it Land of Confusion?
Yes, Land of Confusion. Yeah. Oh, the country was so divided. So divided. So divided. We're always so divided. Politics isn't the problem. I mean, on one level it is. But politics isn't the core problem. The core problem is ourselves. Is in our belief that we are divided. That's the problem. The problem is that one person keys a car and you blame an entire portion of the community for it. One person robs a store and you blame an entire community of people for it. One person steals, money, embezzles money, and you blame an entire portion of the community for it. It's personal responsibility. Personal responsibility. The community responsibility is that we fail each other continually. That's the community responsibility. We fail each other continually because we believe in separation, because that's the basket that we're putting our eggs in. If we want to see things change, then we got to get our eggs out of that basket and put them into the opposite basket. And I do love this, and I hope that it becomes a trend. That what Lori was saying, that it's about the nobility of the qualities that a person is expressing. And if the qualities are noble, then yes, I will support it. I don't care what they call themselves. Doesn't matter what party. What matters is this. And it's the same thing for people. Just people. Most people are good at heart. They really are. They just want to be happy. All people are confused about how to get there. Yeah, great reflections. Thank you. Any other ones right now? Yes?
The term how comes up a lot.
Yeah.
Because we all say the same thing. And, you've probably heard me talk about it before. But I found it interesting when you were talking about starting at the end with the IKEA, because you have to know where you're going. Otherwise you have all these leftover things that you don't know what to do with, and they turn into negative energy and positive energy, and they just sit there and waste all these concepts that come through on it. And I was watching this wonderful show called Abstract on Netflix, and it's all these great thinkers in different areas of, expertise, design, architecture, biology, etc., and unstructured play.
Mm.
And it brings up this concept of within bipartisan and choices on how we look at things, if everyone were to see the ideal state, like what it could be, then are we more likely to get there?
Mm.
And so like my brain goes into that, as you can imagine, or else I can trail off to. But the beauty of that is likely yes, because then it creates those feelings of greed and want, and they have it, even though it's a negative place of those. Are they more likely to follow that and take one egg, put it in the next basket, and release those negative feelings as they go through that journey, but not really knowing it sometimes?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where my thought process comes in all these metaphors and conversations that you have, and what it means in those big pictures of how we look at it.
Yeah. Envisioning the possibility is step one. You have to have a great imagination. Advaita Vedanta is oftentimes referred to as the great imagination. Advaita Vedanta is an area of spiritual study from India. It's one of the schools of spiritual wisdom. There's 6 of them there. And it's sometimes referred to as the great imagination, because all you have to do is imagine it. And then you make it a possibility. You have to imagine it, and then you make it a possibility. Then you need to cultivate the qualities in order to resolve the karma that's in your way of realizing your imagination. So now maybe there's 4, maybe there's Dharma, Karma, Varna, imagine it. Yeah, so imagine it. Get out of your comfort zone. Think about the greatest possible thing, and then do the work necessary. But understand that it doesn't mean that your vision is going to be exactly what you envision, because maybe Source has something much different in mind for you. But those qualities that you're cultivating are still in line with that. A lot of times people say, how did you do this, Sasha? And I say, I don't know. I spent a lot of years meditating and envisioning how it would be laid out, the color scheme, how the rooms would look, the decor, envisioning the students, learning, smiling, crying, a lot of years. And when we came here and found and discovered that this was actually up for auction, if it had been another point in my life, I would have never believed it could have been done. No. My husband was recently diagnosed with cancer within a year, just about a year before we came here, diagnosed with cancer, on complete disability. I was running the yoga school over in New Jersey and trying to balance my caregiving with that. We had no savings to speak of, little tiny bit in 401k. Our financial was in the negative, not the positive. And all I kept saying was, if it's meant to be, it will, and I am willing to do the work. So if you want this to be here, or if this is in the flow of the impersonal cosmos in this moment in time, then just put me where I need to be, and that's where I will go. So I started taking the floors up, and painting and cleaning, because we ended up getting it. We had just enough. We had just enough to get the building, but not enough to get heat. That was tough. But it was just enough to get the building. And then, from there, people just started stepping forward, and people who I didn't know, and people who I knew, both. And they started stepping forward and saying, what are you doing? Are you crazy? I'm like, I don't know. Some days I think, I'm probably certifiable. But let me tell you about what I want to do here. And then I would give them the vision. I would share the darshan with them. I would say, this is the vision. And certain people stepped forward and said, what can I do to support the vision? And they supported in amazing, 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 generous ways. Such amazing ways, We got heat. We got the main water line. We got the place painted. We got backjacks and chairs for you to sit on. In the first 18 months, it was mostly Ed and I here. And Ed did what he could when he wasn't treating. And when he was treating, I did a lot so I would stay the heck out of his hair. Are you okay? Are you feeling okay? What's going on? That whole spouse, concerned about spouse being ill thing. And then one by one, the volunteers started coming in once we let people know we were here. And so there's no reason for this to be here. It started with imagination. It started with the envisioning of it. But that's not enough. It's not enough to just see it. You have to also be it. You see it, you be it. And the being it is the Varna and the resolution of the karma. And it continues on. And I had a couple of students at different points in time ask me, what would you do if it didn't work? I said, I don't know. Teach yoga under a bridge or something, It's not about where you are. It's about the qualities of nobility that you're cultivating within yourself that empower you to be wherever you are. That's what it's about. You have to be able to imagine that too, for sure. It's a great question. Comment. Yeah. Can I do a time check? Hello, Mohan. How are you? Om Namah Shivaya. Oh. We do still have about 10 minutes, so that's good. Yes.
I have a question in relationship to, is there a particular more formal practice to Varna, Karma, and Dharma that you suggest?
Well, I have a list. I brought this for a reason. I just want to make sure I get all 8 of them. So it depends on the school of thought you come from. So in Catholicism, it's called the 10 Commandments. Right? In yoga, it's called the yamas and the niyamas. They're really similar to the 10 Commandments, or I should say the 10 Commandments are really similar to them. There's a list of qualities to cultivate in every single tradition. In Judaism, what is it called, Chuck? Do you know? Is there a list of preferred qualities a person should embrace?
It starts with the 10 Commandments.
Starts with the 10 Commandments, yeah. Anybody in the room Muslim? Anybody in the room an alternate tradition that has a different list? Every tradition has them. They all do. So the first thing to say is whatever tradition you belong to, check in with your tradition. If you're staying with your tradition, then that's the best place to get the guidance from because it's already written for you. Then the next thing to consider is what do you need to do in order to embrace the teachings of your particular tradition? And here's a list of 8. Know thyself. All the tendencies and qualities that you carry and express. Engage in self-study. Come to know who you are. 2, seek out the inner inspiration, the inner light of yourself. Build faith in your goodness. And then do not act contrary to that, if at all possible. Build faith in your inner goodness. 3, look at the challenges that continually arise in your life and come to understand them. Understand why the challenge consistently comes to you, and then cultivate the qualities necessary to diffuse it. 4, know what your core values are, clearly and emphatically. Cultivate a loyalty to those qualities such that you cannot be shaken from them. What are your core qualities in your life? Does anybody have one that you live by? Oh, you must know this. What was that, Jeff? Kindness. Yep. So if kindness is a core quality, then it must touch every part of your life. You must be loyal to it like you would to a lover or a friend. You have to be loyal to that core quality. You can't run off with harm every time a little irritation happens. You have to choose your basket. 5, know that our gifts and resources are spiritual tools. You are not your car, you are not your house, you are not your bank account. Those things are present in your life for the purpose of your spiritual path. Yes, they are the result sometimes, but not always, of hard work and dedication. But they are not your goal. They might be a part of your goal in the material world, but if you're truly concerned with the state of your spirit, they're not your goal. If you're not mindful, they will become an obstacle. So you have to treat them appropriately and recognize that they're a tool. 6, understand all experience as opportunity to dive deeper, see clearer, and attain our ultimate goal. All experience, not just when things are going your way. Difficult person comes in front of you, great opportunity to practice that kindness. Absolutely. Car gets into a fender bender, great opportunity to practice compassion, understanding, and patience. Medical concerns, great opportunity to go inside and to commune with the self on all levels. Compassion, patience, collaboration. Every experience without exception. Betrayal comes your way? Wow, that's a great opportunity, isn't it? It's a great opportunity to cultivate healthy boundaries. Say thank you to the person who betrayed you. They made you open your eyes for a moment. Did you choose to see? That's the question. 7, know that the dream of your heart is true and attainable, right? And know the difference between the dream of your heart and the desire of your ego. You got to know the difference. If what you want is power, that's your ego. If what you want is peace, that's your heart. If you feel that you can achieve peace through power, then you need to investigate what you mean by that. Is it the power of service? Is it the power of love? Or is it the power of self-validation? You have to investigate. Know that your dream is true and have your dream. Don't let other people tell you what you can or can't do. Right. Because people will put you in that corner over there and make you stay there for a long time. Don't let people tell you what you can or can't do. This is your spiritual path. You need to extend your arms out. You need to walk your line. You need to fall down and get yourself back up again. And in the same vein, don't you tell other people what they can or can't do. The more that you're investing in trying to tell somebody else what to do, you're not paying enough attention to yourself and what you should or shouldn't be doing. And then finally, 8, do not be distraught. Remember the words of Christ. He said, "Be not afraid, be not disappointed, because I am always with you. I will accompany you wherever you go." If you prefer Krishna, then remember his words. "He who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, he will never become separated from me, nor do I ever become separated from him." And if you prefer Durga, or the Shakti of the universe, the mother, then remember her words. "Not only did you come from me, you live within me. You are part of me, and I am part of you, just as the child is never separated from the mother." That's all the evidence we need. That's it. So those are your 8 steps. You're very welcome. Yeah. We have time for maybe one more question or comment. Jeff?
I was going to say that all throughout my life, I lived to the expectations of my parents, relatives, you need this, you need that, and pleasing them, people pleasing, and making sure they were happy where it's not I wasn't. And, my grandfather planted the seed of art in me at a young age. I wanted to go to school for it, that didn't work out, but I find like chasing after things outside myself kept me from going within to find what I wanted to do with my life, my path. And lo and behold, I was looking for a place to live and it wasn't working out. Found a place where I can set up an art studio inside my house. And I'm right across the river, and I always wanted to be near a water source. So it's like, if you believe it, you can achieve it.
Absolutely. Believe it. So imagine it. Cultivate the core qualities necessary to resolve the karmas that stand against it, and allow yourself to come closer to your path of Dharma. Dharma, karma, Varna, and a little imagination. Good. Let's sit nice and tall. Close the eyes. Take a nice breath in, a nice breath out. And in this moment, commit to a gentle assessment. Choose one thing, one tendency that places your eggs in the anger basket, the hate basket, the manipulation basket, the doubt basket. And commit to the work of cultivating the values necessary to have the strength and courage to move your eggs to the other basket. Choose wisely. And choose from a place that remembers the inherent goodness of your own being. Join the hands together in front of the heart. And together we'll lift our voices in one Om. Take a breath in. Bowing the head to the heart, acknowledging all that is. And draw the face to center. Namaste. Thank you all so much for being here today. So good to see and gather with each one of you. Wonderful. So now we are going to take a little 10-minute break, and then we will experience Arati, the ritual of complete love. So I hope that you'll stay for that. The kitchen is serving until 1 o'clock. There's plenty of time for both. So we'll see you back here in about 10 minutes. Thank you all so much.